Hello everyone, we have learned the diaphragmatics. Today we are going to learn Chinese cinnamon twig, one of the pungent warm diaphragmatics. Chinese cinnamon twig, or Remulus cinnamomum, is called guizhi in Chinese. It is a twig of Cinnamomum acacia praso, and mainly produced in the province of Guangxi, Guangdong, and Yunnan in China. Chinese cinnamon twig needs to be collected in spring or summer because the efficacy of it is the best collected in this season. The processing of Chinese cinnamon twig is relatively simple, just need to be cut into pieces and used unprepared. Chinese cinnamon twig is pungent and sweet in flavor, warm in nature, and distributed to the lung, heart, and bladder meridians. It is an ascending and floating drug and no toxic. The functions of Chinese cinnamon twig are mainly 3 points. The first is dispersing actions. Chinese cinnamon twig has gentle dispersing actions compared with ephedra. It is warm in nature, so it can dispel wind, cold pathogenic factors from the exterior by diaphoresis, used for treating exterior cold syndrome. And it can dispel wind and dampness as well as relieve rheumatic pains and or muscular contraction, used for treating the arthralgia syndrome due to wind, cold, dampness. The second is warming and dispelling cold through the meridians and the collaterals, used for treating phlegm retention disease and edema due to the stagnation of yang qi in the heart and spleen and the retention of watery phlegm in the body. The last one is reinforcing yang to promote the flow of qi. It can reinforce yang of heart to promote the flow of heart qi, used for treating heart palpitation. There are 5 main indications of Chinese cinnamon twig. The first is exterior cold syndrome. Chinese cinnamon twig can dispel wind, cold, pathogenic factors from the exterior by diaphoresis. It was used for treating exterior cold syndrome, usually with ephedra. The exterior cold syndrome marked by severe cold, slight fever, absence of sweat, thin and white tongue coating, as well as floating and tense pulse. And it was used with white peony root for treating exterior cold syndrome in the deficiency cases, marked by cold, slight fever and sweating, thin and white tongue coating, as well as floating and loose pulse. The second is wind, cold, dampness syndrome. Chinese cinnamon twig can dispel wind and damp and relieve rheumatic pains and or muscular contraction. It can be used for treating exterior cold syndrome, cold damp syndrome, and marked by cold, slight fever, nausea, poor appetite, and diarrhea, muscular contraction, thin white greasy coating, floating pulse, usually with notopterygium roots. Treat arthralgia syndrome due to wind, cold, dampness with notopterygium root and clematis root, marked by itching joints of shoulders and limbs, thin and white greasy coating, floating pulse. The third is phlegm retention disease due to yang deficiency of heart and spleen. Chinese cinnamon twig can warm and dispel cold from the meridians and the collaterals, treat phlegm retention disease and edema due to stagnation of yang qi in heart and spleen and retention of watery phlegm in the body, marked by heart palpitation, short of breath, edema, pale enlarged tongue, slippery fur, and deep thread pulse, usually with porrhea together. The fourth is heart yang deficiency syndrome. Chinese cinnamon twig can reinforce yang, yang of heart to promote the flow of heart qi. used for treating chest pain, heart palpitations, and slow pulse with irregular intervals due to the deficiency of heart yang, usually used with ginseng, licorice, and lily turf root. The last one is irregular menstruation, amenorrhea. It can warm and promote the flow of qi and blood, can dispel cold. Used for treating irregular menstruation, amenorrhea with Chinese angelica root, white peony root, and peach kernel together. Dark red, and dark purple tongue were more common. The commonly used dose of Chinese cinnamon twig for oral administration is 3 to 10 grams per day. Dosage of traditional Chinese drugs refers to the daily amount of each drug for an adult, or relative amount of different drugs in a prescription. The dosage of traditional Chinese drugs is very important. According to the nature of the drug, the patient's conditions and treatment requirements, dose was selected. Chinese cinnamon twig, pungent and warm, can damage in and cause blood disorder. Pregnant women and patients with iron deficiency and fire hyperactivity syndrome should avoid use of it. There is another herb that comes from the same plant, Chinese cinnamon bark. It is the dried bark of Cinnamomum acacia praso, an interior warming drug with different effects and indications. It is hot in nature, can supplement fire and strengthen yang, dispel cold and cold damp, warm up the channels. Today we have learned the Chinese cinnamon twig, one of the diuretics. It is warm in nature and with pungent sweet flavor. Can dispel wind, cold, pathogenic factors from the exterior by diaphoresis. Dispel wind and damp, and relieve rheumatic pains and muscular contraction. Warm and dispel cold from the meridians and collaterals. In clinical, it is used for different diseases such as common cold, arthralgia syndrome, phlegm retention disease, edema, heart palpitations, and irregular menstruation. So much for today. Thank you. Goodbye.